Back now to our breaking news. The leader of the mercenary group, the Wagner Group, announced that he's turning his forces away from their march towards...
This is so funny, dude. He's like, all right, we're done. He's like, we're good. Didn't they like take down a fucking Russian helicopter or some shit too in the process? All right, it's fine. Not going to Moscow. Fuck it. Pack it up, boys. We're good. Here's what Osin Defender is saying. According to Russian state media, major changes to the leadership of the Russian Ministry of Defense, including changes to the current defense minister Sergei Shoigu and the Army Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov, have reportedly been agreed upon in order to stop the march of the Wagner PMC group towards the capital of Moscow. These negotiations have also reportedly included the assured security of the Wagner Group. These negotiations are also reported to have included a stipulation that the majority of Wagner PMC forces will be redeployed out of Russia and Ukraine to Africa. Those two better not go near any windows for the next few months. No, I think he'll just fucking... Sounds like they went on strike to me. Good for them. So you were wrong about Ukraine and now about Russia. Fuck it. I'm saying it. Russia will collapse. Wait, what? No, I not say that at all. What the fuck are you talking about? It's got to be bait, right? Africa, bro, Russia's actually going to lose? No, Wagner already operates mostly in Africa and Syria. What do you mean? Guys, they're mercs. They were already predominantly operating in Africa, so he's just sending him over there. There's a lot of PMCing you can do in Africa, yeah, to combat malaria. As usual, Twitter opinions attacking you for things you didn't say, lol. Yeah. Yeah, Wagner owns gold mines all throughout Africa and does human trafficking. Fun stuff. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's Moscow, that is Yevgeny Prighozhin. And it comes amid a deal apparently brokered by the Belarusian president, Alexander Lukashenko. Joining me now is the former Russian foreign minister, Andrei Kozyrev. Welcome back to our program, Andrei Kozyrev. You were foreign minister from 1990 to 96. That includes the time when Gorbachev suffered a coup. So I just want to ask you, what do you think was going on? Was Prighozhin trying to conduct a coup? What actually do you think his motivation was?
Well, it's very difficult to pass a final judgment, but I believe that it's just a traditional Kremlin's fight or Bulldogs fight under the rug, But now it came to the open because it's different time. It's time of information era, and especially in time of the war, which they cannot win, at least, if not are losing. So under these circumstances, it's kind of fight on their rank and even on camera. But it's deadly fight, but it's also a reality show. And these guys are all of the same kind of league, all of the same gang, rather. They are gangsters fighting for their piece of pie, and pie is becoming thinner because of the war, because of the sanctions, and the fight becomes thicker, so to say.
Yeah.
The fight becomes more intensive.
So Andrei Kozyrev, do you include Putin in this gang as a gangster? And do you think he is strengthened or weakened by this?
Absolutely. He is probably godfather of the whole arrangement. Yeah,
that was my favorite shit. That was my fucking favorite shit, was looking at Twitter and seeing, like, Russians just hanging out while, like, the Wagner boys were assuming, like, military positions, you know what I mean? They were like, what the fuck? Is this not working? Yo, this one sucked. Yeah, they were bringing him food and water, which I thought was odd, but also they were just, like, fucking chilling. There was a guy who was, like, cleaning the street. He's like, yeah, it's my job. I'm gonna keep doing my job. Fuck you. You know? Slav squatting at the coup. Yeah. These motherfuckers are unshakable, dude. The good old bulldog fight under the rug. They had a parade for when Wagner was leaving, casually casually buying vodka, giving the Wagner guys the vodka.
Oh, Prigozhin was his creature. He created Prigozhin, and he owns Belarusian dictator who depends totally on his support because people there are against the dictator. So those are all participants in the same vaudeville, so to say, in the same drama, if you want. And yes, of course, Putin is one of those. It well might be that Prigozhin really wants to unseat Putin, but I don't believe he ever thought of that. And probably he could, even if he has an upper hand, he probably will keep Putin as a front man, as a puppet, because it's very convenient. Yes, but if he does not have the ultimate kind of upper hand, they will kind of try to find a, an agreement. They are bargaining now behind the scenes, and but it does not mean that they would not use force for this bargain.
Okay, so let me ask you a final question. When we first had you on after Putin's invasion, this latest invasion of Ukraine, you said that when Putin makes that kind of move, he has to be punched back strong in the nose. That's the only language he understands. Do you think Ukraine and its Western backers have punched Putin strongly enough in the nose?
Unfortunately not, but there is still chance, and there is still necessity, especially under the circumstances when those bulldogs are now fighting almost openly. That's the right time to give Ukraine the most powerful, most modern weapons and make their offensive successful and end the war. If the West helps Ukraine to end the war fast, then it will be of much less importance what kind of, it will go on, this fight of the bulldogs there. So it's okay, let them do it in their cage, but not on Ukrainian soil.
What we know now is that Yevgeny Prighozhin has agreed to turn round his columns on the way to Moscow, and they've gone back to field camps. We've seen video of some of those Wagner fighters leaving the Rostov-on-Don city, that southern military stronghold that they took over last night and seemed to walk into, they said, without even firing a shot. They're leaving. He indeed himself was pictured in an SUV wearing a baseball cap in that city. It seems driving out and being cheered by locals. So that answers one question the Kremlin weren't able to answer themselves. Where is Yevgeny Prighozhin? He seems to be leaving Rostov. But the Kremlin also offered a very elaborate series of solutions to how today has finally come to an end. In their statements, they think Yevgeny Prighozhin is now bound for Belarus. Interestingly, Belarus's president stepped forward, and Russian state media has backed that up to suggest that he played a role as kind of an intermediary here, getting Yevgeny Prighozhin to agree to stand down at the behest of Vladimir Putin. We also know that Wagner fighters who were involved in this particular march on Moscow, as it's been termed by some, they will not face prosecution. The Kremlin saying that their bravery on the front lines has been recognized, and that those who were not involved in the march could in fact join the Russian Ministry of Defense. So an utterly bizarre, sudden 180 towards the end of today, where Yevgeny Prighozhin, by his own suggestion, was 125 miles outside of the outskirts of the capital city, unimpeded, frankly, all that way, bar some minor clashes perhaps with helicopters on that main highway, suddenly decides to change his mind, and then according to...
The part I don't understand is why this dude is getting dapped up by not just like old people, but young people too. Like, I don't know if that's like a commonly shared sentiment or whatever. I don't know if it's like where he is in Russia and like their own political perspective or whatever. But it is odd. They are the heroes of Bakhmut, and yes, it's common because he's epic to them. Like, tired of the regime, just want other people in power, even though they're much worse. Like, I I kind of don't understand it because, like, on the one hand, like, if you like Wagner, you're supposed to like them because they're fucking ruthless, right? He was a legendary caterer. Yeah, they like Prighozhin because he's so good. My adoring public, yo, it's him, the Kuhmeister. We love you, sir. Good luck in Belarus. Me, unaware that I've just been fed 50 times the lethal dose of polonium in a meatball sub. Aw, shucks. You fans are the ones who really make the Wagner PMC great. Are you ready? Or obviously not, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. As a local, I'd say it's more likely going to be younger people that would like him. Older people see him as a thug, gang leader mostly. Keep in mind, he was in jail for multiple offenses, only amnestied by fucking Gorby government. Yeah. Thoughts on the thing that Wagner wants more power so they can pursue the war on their own terms and be more effective in killing? I believe that. You know what I mean?
It kind of feels like a labor.
I mean, it is. Kazan kaldırıyor a lot. That is the real historic precedent for what they did. The Janissaries, as I told you guys before, were the most effective, like, Ottoman Empire military group. They were the best fighters. They were like the specialists, and they would regularly have. It wasn't a mutiny, but they would regularly have strikes, revolving around pay for the most part, or revolving around changes that were being made to the military or something like that. You know what I mean? They would strike at the top of the hour when there's a 3-minute ad break because they still haven't gotten gifted a sub by MK34, MKD50. Who's gifted 5,000 subs at this point. If you still haven't gotten one, you're just not getting it. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna keep it $1.50 with you. Okay? But yeah.
The Kremlin is now part of a deal where he just agrees to go into exile in Belarus and be done with it, all without facing prosecution. It's an utterly baffling turn of events here. Vladimir Putin began the day angrily denouncing an armed insurrection, its blackmail, its terrorist methods, and now appears to have struck a deal with Prighozhin, who will essentially, it seems, if this is really the case, that the Kremlin's version of events will go into effect, will now be safe in Belarus. It will have an impact on Russia's positions on the front lines, because Wagner have been key fighters there, certainly. But I've got to tell you, Wolf, it feels like we're missing some key facts here. It feels like we're missing something in the negotiations with Prighozhin, or something in his calculations. Did this just a long-planned effort, it seems, go too frighteningly well? Did he find himself too close to Moscow and decide to pull back? Has something else gone on that we're not aware of? It doesn't really make sense at this particular stage. What it does do, though, is embarrass the Kremlin and certainly show that Vladimir Putin is not the all-powerful man in Russia that he appeared to be more of 24 hours ago, Wolf.
It's also, as you say, utterly bizarre, and clearly Putin is vulnerable right now. Nick Payton-Walsh reporting for us. Stay with us. U.S. intelligence has been closely monitoring this situation. I want to go to our chief national security correspondent, Jim Sciutto. He's joining us live right now. You have some new reporting, I understand, Jim, about what U.S. intelligence actually knew leading up to these truly extraordinary and historic events.
That's right, Wolf. U.S. Western intelligence, its partners, have been watching Russia, of course, very closely for some time. But in recent days, they had detected preparations. They believe that Prighozhin was making preparations and planning for a major challenge to Russian military leadership in recent days and weeks. They were surprised by the speed of his operation in the last 24 hours, but were not surprised that this challenge had taken place. They'd seen a number of preparations in the lead up to this, the massing of weapons, contacts with regular Russian army units, and then, of course, his very public statements critical of Russian military leadership and right up to Vladimir Putin in recent days and weeks as well. And they saw all those signals and saw those as preparations for some serious challenge to Russian military leadership, which is what we seem to have seen play out over these tumultuous last 24 hours. I will say that during that time frame, another thing they were watching closely as Prighozhin marched his forces first to Rostov-on-Don and then further, at least towards Moscow, was how much or how many Russian regular army units would join him in that. Early on, as we were discussing earlier in the day, they noticed that many Russian units did not seem to be challenging Prigozhin's advance, though not perhaps joining him, but at least not challenging him, letting him pass by. What isn't clear is that there was a critical mass of other forces joining him in this challenge here, and that could have been an influential factor in what we've seen just in these last couple of hours there, a reversal by Prigozhin and his forces, and now seeing them leave, head back to their camps, to their bases.
Very important indeed. Our Jim Sciutto reporting for us. Thank you. CNN's Ben Wiedemann is also tracking what's going on. He's getting reaction from inside Ukraine. He's live in Zaporizhia in the war zone in Ukraine. He's joining us right now. So, Ben, what are you learning? What's the situation there?
Well, I must say, Wolf, it has been a long, strange day. This morning, when everyone here in Ukraine learned that at 7:30 a.m. local time, that Prigozhin and his men appeared to have seized some critical military facilities in southern Russia, in Rostov-on-Don, it seemed that perhaps Russia was on the brink of something huge. Ukrainian officials started talking about perhaps this is the beginning of the collapse of the Russian state, perhaps the beginning of a civil war. Even President Zelensky, in his nightly address to the nation, suggested that perhaps Vladimir Putin was on the run.
Ben Wiedemann reporting from Zaporizhia in Ukraine. Ben, thank you very much. Stay safe over there, as I say to you every day. CNN's Nick Payton Walsh is back with us. I also want to bring in retired General Wesley Clark, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, and retired Colonel Cedric Leighton, both CNN
Look at these
military
fucking generals,
analysts.
dude.
General Clark, Moscow was bracing for a potential Wagner assault. There's no doubt about that. Yet now the Kremlin says they've struck a deal with Prigozhin. What's your reaction to these late-breaking developments?
I agree with what Nick said, that we don't have all the facts. There are missing facts here. Here's a couple of things that don't add up. Number one is, do we really know that there was a rocket strike on Prigozhin's troops? We don't really know that.
Lemon party reunion
video
over
of
here.
it, but we don't have any evidence of that. We do know that.
Why do they both look ghoulish? What do you mean? They're fucking retired generals, man. Of course they look ghoulish. They're like, they got pure evil. Wesley Clark is an interesting guy, though. I mean, out of all American generals, he's definitely a bit of an oddball.
That tactical nuclear weapons
His
have been
politics are
supposedly moved
interesting.
into Belarus. Is it possible that this is all a sort of Maskirovka distraction to be able to redeploy the Wagner Group troops into Belarus? We don't know that. We don't really understand the essence of the deal. So there's a lot of facts here that don't make sense, but
The craziest thing is that Prigozhin said that the special military operation in Ukraine was a mistake and a cash grab for the elites, which is a big no-no to say in Russia. So it's weird because, like, he's ultra-nationalist. So what the fuck does that mean? I remember hearing about that and not fully understanding it. Like, it's not like he's anti-war. He's a fucking mercenary. I don't think he said it like that. And I think that was a mistranslation or wishful thinking by people who wanted to present him as like a possible anti-Putin, anti-war, or anti-war in Ukraine guy. He's an ultra-nationalist who's upset at the way that the war is being waged. Okay? Like, he wants to do it better. Like, he wants to be more ruthless. He wants to be more efficient. He wants to... You know what I mean? It's not like he's saying, like, oh, we need to do peace, actually. I want to go back to fucking catering. He's like, why haven't you given me hammers to kill civilians with? I don't understand it. We need more hammers on the fucking front lines. It wasn't a mistranslation. I heard him say it. Yeah, I think he said, like, nothing special happened on the 24th of February. And it was started under bullshit pretenses, specifically not because of some tactical interests, but specifically so that Shoigu could get a second medal, and that all of Putin's MOD are basically leading him astray. They're like lying to him.
it doesn't seem that Prigozhin is the kind of person who would have launched something like this, prepared for it, and then suddenly just decide, well, I don't seem to have the troop support. I think I'll just cut a deal and go into exile in Belarus. This is a man who controls Syria. He's got troops all over Africa. He's bringing in gold. He's worth a lot of money. There's a lot more here that we're not seeing yet.
I suspect you're absolutely right. Colonel Layton, we do have some new video of Prigozhin supposedly leaving Rostov-on-Don military headquarters with crowds cheering him. Does Putin still see Prigozhin as a threat as long as Prigozhin is still alive?
Well, that I think is one possibility, Wolf, that he is still a threat. I agree with General Clark. This is one of the most bizarre situations that we've dealt with in a long time. The other possibility is that this is a huge masquerade that's been staged for everybody's benefit to get them to believe that something is going on when it really isn't. And that's I think, one of the possibilities. And the possibility, as General Clark mentioned, of them going into Belarus, something that has to be considered. The possibility that they might be redeploying within Ukraine to some other area that is perhaps weaker now because of some other things. That's also possible. So there are a lot of things that could still happen. He could still be considered a threat by Putin because the language was very strong this morning in Putin's speech. But there's something that is not quite adding up here.
Jill, as you know, the Kremlin now says the criminal case against Prigozhin will be dropped. So what does all this reveal about Vladimir Putin's grasp on power right now?
Well, I still think that he is in a very weakened position after this. I mean, after all, a rebellion almost getting to Moscow, there's no question. And he's also left with this dilemma of what do you do with Prigozhin? I mean, Prigozhin is a time bomb. And they know it. So this idea that you get him out of Russia, you send him to Belarus, it sounds a little strange, but I cannot imagine that Prigozhin would continue to be in Russia because every day that he's there, he's a potential threat. I mean, what Prigozhin wants is to get rid of the leadership of the military. Does he want Putin to go? Not necessarily, but he's been very critical in effect by saying what he said, that Putin was misled by his military. So it is a very confusing situation, but I think, I was asking myself, why would they let Lukashenko do this deal? And I do think that if Putin were to negotiate directly with Prigozhin, it would put them on the same level. Putin could never do that. So he gets Lukashenko, who owes him a lot, to do the deal, but the deal still leaves all of these questions. Does Wagner disband? Where do they go? Do they go back to fight? Do they even exist? What happens to all the lucrative business that Prigozhin has from Wagner? It's really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, lots of questions still unfolding right now. General Hertling, how incredible is it that this power struggle between the Russian military on the one hand and Prigozhin and his Wagner troops spiraled this far?
Wolf, that is a great question. And what's fascinating, in all organizational militaries, you have unique personalities, some with a lot of ego. As Jill just mentioned, Prigozhin is, I would say, not just a time bomb, but he's a free-floating electron. He's all over the place. And what you're talking about with Prigozhin and Shoigu, neither one of them are professional military men. They have not grown up in the military. They're play acting in this. They have not subjugated their forces to the security of Russia. They have forces that are pledged to them. It's phenomenal. I was thinking as I was watching the film, some of which you're showing right now, the soldiers that are walking around as part of the Wagner Group under Prigozhin's command, what the hell are they thinking right now? What is their mission? What's their mission set? It's certainly not to serve Russia. It's to serve this personality. And the ego is off the chart. It's narcissistic. And truthfully, there are a lot of losers from what occurred over the last 24 hours. There will be continued losers. And I believe both Putin, Shoigu, and Prigozhin are all losers in this outcome.
Dmitry, you're an expert in this whole area. What do you think?
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, the fact that Prigozhin's Wagner Group, this armored column, was able to reach within about 150 miles of Moscow without the combined forces of the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Interior Forces, the intelligence services of the FSB, as well as the Rosguardia, the National Guard, being able to stop them is truly remarkable and indicates how weak the whole system has become. I mean, this is almost, they've reached as far as Hitler did in 1941, right on the outskirts of Moscow. Truly remarkable. And even after Putin had declared that these traitors have to be crushed, the Russian military still was unable to stop them.
You think he should, Prigozhin, Dmitry, should fear for his life right now?
I think it's too early to say. This deal may very well hold. And in fact, the right way to think about the Russian system in general is, for those of you who like the Godfather movie, it's as if the Barzini crime family negotiated a deal between Vito Corleone and the other rival family. These are essentially mafia figures. And sometimes in these mafia gangland shootouts, what's known in Russian as razborki, sometimes you have deaths of leaders, sometimes you have sit-downs that result in peace. It may not be durable peace, but sometimes they agree to move on.
Hey everyone, Enter here. Hope you've enjoyed this edit. Don't forget to drop us a like and subscribe. And do leave a Kaya love in the comment section down below if you reach this point of the video. If you'd like to see more content like this, how about looking at this video over here?